comes with. Because whereas it's just $52 million, you have 50 million shareholders.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Behind that $52 million. And the scrutiny that you're receiving, Nelson and your team, is because of that. In my daily work in the area of business and human rights, even when you haven't used government money because you are impacting the community that you're in, you still receive certain levels of scrutiny as a big business. And so you would have to ably shoulder the burden that comes with carrying that $52 million into your business. The questions around why you, why not other people that have shown an interest in coffee before? Why only you? Why not a conglomerate of local small coffee producers coming together? And what plans might you have to be able to bring those on board? Because the more they get connected to this project, the more it is viewed as a more national development idea and not Nelson's personal. Because again, all of these things outlive us. They outlive us. So whereas it is your brainchild, several years down the road, who knows what it's going to be, where it's going to be, and it will be serving Ugandans even at that point. So as you shoulder this burden, that burden includes so many of the previous, for lack of a better word, mistakes that the government has made in investing in personal businesses. James here made reference to several, phantoms in different parts of the country that he was supervising. Businesses that were supposed to have taken off and nothing happened. We are seeing something happening, but I don't think that the ends necessarily justify the means. I've said on this show before, and I continue to say that a product is only as good as the process that it goes through. As a coffee producer, you would understand that. You've taken us through the different lines for production. That production process is key. So how you get the money, how you build the business, how you impact the communities around you, all of that contributes to how the end product is going to be viewed. When you put this Haraka Platinum coffee on the market, which is a high-end premium coffee, probably more high-end than even the Nestle Gold that we are chasing after in the supermarkets. Will a Ugandan look at Haraka and see Nelson or see the future of coffee in Uganda?
Wow.
And that I think is where we need to really, really build. How much sensitization is going into the understanding of what is going on here? Because I'll confess, it's different. It feels different. Coming in and seeing what is on ground is way different from driving past. And I've driven on that road several times and looked up and seen the coffees and think, what they say Nelson is doing, I'm not so sure.
Our money
is up there. And then you come here and you see the vision and the dream, and it feels like it's something that can really be amazing. There's a challenge sometimes that comes with the idea of having coffee or crops like these, cash crops like these, take over areas that have food crops. We've experienced it before with tea in Chigezi and other places. In Munyoro as well, with the trees in my home area in Nyachenyi in Rukunjiri, same thing. You have everyone thinking there is money in trees, so I'm going to cut down my shamba and plant trees. But trees take 15, 20 years to give you a valuable, and then after 5 years, you find someone selling the trees and the land just because they have to send their child to school or have food at the table. So how do you intend to manage that relationship so that the rush is not, Nelson is giving us amazing farm gate prices, let us all go and grow coffee, and next thing you know, there are no bananas which would have put food on the table, there are no beans which would have been sold to take a child to school, and you're waiting for those 3 years in which you actually be able to receive some kind of income. I think that key would be engaging with, and I know it might not be easy, but for us to be able to sell this as a a development of Uganda idea, there is need to get the other coffee players in harmony. Again, what gets said around will matter. It begins to affect the brand. What has happened in the past, some of it needs to be owned up to, even by the government, where the mistakes have been made. It's a challenge to just keep trying to sweep things under the rug and saying, oh, Pineti we forget about Pineti. We now have Tugume. Pineti happened and is still happening.
And even Tugume has happened. And that is going to lead my next question. And Nelson, and that's why you may need the services of Joseph here and many others. Say, Nelson, no one is particularly against your dream. I mean, you are an incredible guy when it comes to dreaming. But Nelson, I have with me here audit queries about you and your engagements. These are things we did earlier on in northern Uganda. The so-called joke we have that you got money from government to teach us how to drink coffee. I mean, there are many things that you, Nelson, have done. Incredible stuff. I mean, I've known you in this journey. When I led you to the European Union, we did some work with MasterCard Foundation. But you have audit queries from the Auditor General of this country. And so your personal brand is at stake. And you've done so many things, but you don't complete them. You've done so many things, and things have fallen. Now, question is, isn't this going to be another of Nelson's nicely put together ideas that just breaks up and disappears? So, Nelson, you need to speak to those allegations and clear them so that we have confidence that we are giving the money to the right guy that means business.
Number one, Simon, I think there's no one in the world that never make mistakes. If I'm at least not one of those. I've made my own mistakes. And I don't think the only thing I can do is to learn from my mistakes. Number two, my neighbor here, I think he has put something called shielding the burden.
Wait a minute, Nelson. Did you just say sorry? In admitting to have made mistakes, are you saying on the Capital Gang that whatever it is you've done in the past, that has led to the loss of public funds,
whatever
you are sorry?
Exactly, whatever it could have been, I'm saying I'm sorry. And if I think, or if anyone thought I was one of those who can't fail, I can tell them frankly, I've failed very many times.
It takes humility to do that, to admit, to say sorry.
Very many times I've failed on very many things. So, and that's why I say I'm sorry, whatever it could be. But what I know very well, I know for the next generation to be what it is, we have to fail. And the most important thing for this country is to learn from those failures.
Not to stay down, but to raise from
Not friends to bury us even more. Here in Uganda, when you fail, you even must be buried never to come out. I've seen countries that have made it. When the people fail, they learn from those failures. That's number one. Number two, I personally put it on my heart that I must be the sacrifice. He has said the burden of making the next generation has a better place and value for the private sector and government on how to do business. All places, all governments, countries that we've seen that are developing, the private sector is so strong than government. Here is the reverse. So when you use the public money, then it becomes that burden that you've mentioned. Even the public money overshadows your money, overshadows your dreams, puts you at a certain risk and level even of your own business. I've been and tasked myself that I pray and pray to you, to God in this studio, that this project should not fail. Because the next young man, the next innovator coming, they will say even Tugume failed. I do not want to be that. But also let me come to you about the Auditor General, which has been, that I was given money to teach Ugandans how to drink coffee. It's nonsense, it's rubbish. It's people of individualistic opportunities trying to tarnish someone's name for their own gain. I can tell you how this started. The president of World Bank in Africa, Obi Zikwize, he stood as the Nigerian president. She found me in the World Bank in Washington, speaking how we must change this injustice of the coffee slavery injustice in Africa, and asked Uganda, can you support this young man? He seemed to have something great. When I came with my money, by the way, on that trail. I put my own money in northern Uganda, in Karamoja, those of you who don't know. And the government supported under an MOU, not even a contract, under an MOU. Bring your resources, I mean the human brain, and whatever resources you have. Start number one, introducing of coffee production in northern Uganda. I have achieved. If you go to northern Uganda, the CJ, General Tema, and other people right now have 12,000 acres of coffee in northern Uganda.
Which would never have been the case if
Which
you had not
would
gone.
have never happened.
Nelson?
This is a big score. Can I tell you another score? We introduced 1,500 in northern Uganda, young people, whom of them you're going to see here as barristers. Some of them have gone to Oman, UAE. Even if I produced one person to go and change the mindset of how we think and learn, that was an objective ticked.
Is it Opio, the one I met down there, who they say has won world championships in barista competition?
Exactly. That's one of them, and many others. So let me complete this. Those with opportunistic interests, I think let's agree for economic stability of our country and stabilization, we have a minimum way of doing things. But I also say, if this was meant for me and written for next generation to be a better generation, then let it be.
This is the Capital Gang. It's exactly 1 minute to 11. We are taking in a break. When we return, we shall go into a slippery slope, a slippery slope where I don't think you, Nelson, may want to go with us. But nonetheless, you can stay and listen to how we go down into the political domain. For you, our listeners and viewers on whatever place that you are catching this program on, we can't thank you more. Let's take a short break. When we return, it's more of the Capital Gang. Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang coming to you live from the Africa Coffee Park in Ntungamo. My name is Kasiate, Simon Kasiate, standing in for the regular and perennial host of this program, Oscar Semweya, who fortunately for me is not around, and so I have the opportunity to be in this place. And for a good number of coincidental happenings, when we have an off-site engagement of the gang, at least for the few times, I am usually the standing host. I remember the last Saturday before the last election, we were in Gulu, and I happened to be the host of the program.
Come to Tororo and I'll deputize for you.
You see Simon, when the one time people like you, your press asked the president, who is the acting president when you are out of the country? Then he said there is the LC1. So every time they travel, the LC1s in the whole country say, I am the president. So don't assume that you're
I'm the LC1 of the Capital Gang.
Simon is the LC1 of the gang.
LC1 of the Capital Gang in the absence of Oscar.
Well, we've just had the last 1 hour discussing issues around coffee, but very specifically the huge investment that we are seeing at the Africa Coffee Park. And of course, juxtaposing it against the fact that on 1st of October, the world commemorates International Coffee Day. But what does that mean for coffee in this country? But even more importantly, we're at a facility where a bit of the financing has come from the public purse and questions abound. Is this the place that government would have sent its money? Is this the person we want to entrust with our money? And I think Nelson has ably answered those questions. And then the hatchet men that I brought with me to skin him alive only just showed up to do a Balaam in the Bible. I mean, you send guys to cast, they arrive there and bless. Joseph Ocheno being one of those. So now, we'll park the coffee conversation and then get down our slope of politics. We are 1 week into the presidential campaign and things are happening across board. But before we get there, I will ask Nelson to make his last remarks so that we can release you. I believe that this is not a place where we are headed where you want to go. Kubanga jetulaga ojakufa. We are going into politics.
Thank you, Simon. Of course, I would like to also head out and tend to a couple of things, but also to mention on the Capital Gang is that one, you have a president who is very visionary, and therefore everyone out there, I mean, I'm very proud to mention it at the Capital Gang that our president has a vision for a transformative leap, explosive economic growth. And he's the only one person that has convinced me in government that actually we can do PPPs, even when they have challenges. PPPs are public-private partnerships. He has convinced me that this can happen amid these challenges of PR and what you've mentioned. Why you see very many private sector people don't want to engage with government when it comes to business is what the baggage it comes with. But I'm happy that President Museveni can see things in the lenses, with many not even on coffee. I was just recently with him in Cairo, an 80-year-old Mzee, and he's saying we can navigate around the River Nile. That blown my mind because I've lost money in Mombasa. Many people have lost money in Mombasa, and the president is saying, let's go to Alexandria and ensure we link our countries and go to Europe in 3 days, go to China in 5 days, because there is this navigation. That's huge. To me, even if we could not do that, but the mind of possibility, the mind of saying this is possible, that is our president. And no wonder, that's why for me is my inspiration. Getting 47 guns and saying you removing Amin, actually, he's one of my inspirations.
So here I was trying to save you from politics, and now you have gone knee-deep into
I need to go. I don't want to go into politics, Simon. But I want to quickly.
Let's not forget.
You will have to be right to reply.
Listeners, Nelson is wearing
Simon,
a Vote Museveni cape. Nelson is wearing part of the campaign paraphernalia for candidate Yoweri Museveni, and he's unapologetic about it. In fact, it's written on his cape saying unstoppable. Gen Z's for General Museveni.
Yes. So I'm saying So you know, Simon, I was just simply saying, I'm addressing this as the president, and he's our president. I did say NRM or something. He's our president, and I needed you at the Capital Gang and Capital Gangers to know we have a president who understands the private sector. That's important. If he didn't understand the private sector, this our president, I think there would be a couple of challenges. But let me finish, Simon. I'm calling upon all the coffee stakeholders. We had put an objective for this particular Coffee International Day to make sure we speak to our stakeholders, the farmers, even the critics. I remember some time back, but I never followed what Robert Kabushenga was saying. You know, I know he was saying some nonsense things which never happened, and other people whom I've heard on different the kinds of Robert Kabushengas and the Jackie Naturinda. You stop being scammers, opportunists, liars. How does an old man lie? To me, that
because
really,
he's not here to defend himself, I don't think I will allow you to proceed down that path. But the time has
told us that you said that Nelson went away and stole money and ran away and is out of the country.
But because if I say to you here, you are here to defend yourself. But let's leave the people who are not here to defend themselves.
What I'm trying to say, Simon, let's stop misleading people on projects that could transform even our own people. That's number one. It's an appeal.
And you have the opportunity to prove beyond words by your actions, and we are here watching.
Number two, Ugandans, I want to appeal to you that let's be patient with these projects, kind of projects in this magnitude. Why? We do not have the right technologies. We do not have the right people. I can tell you here, I'm unable to run those machines in Haraka because I do not have stable power. I need 1.2 million liters per day to run this plant of water. 1.2 million liters of treated water per day to run this plant you saw. I need, you worked in electricity. I need a minimum of 6 megawatts to run the plant.
Do you have it?
Uninterrupted, stable connectivity.
Uninterrupted, stable power.
Do you have it?
Right now, we have it from Rama Hills coming on. Probably we'll have it in the next 1 or 2 months. But what I'm trying to say, all these things, they need patience, friends. I need high-level microbiology, food scientists, chemists that even this country has not had.
Has not produced.
Yes, because of a colonial mentality, which we are trying to break, you have produced professors who only can innovate around the plant, which Lydia said. I need expatriates who need to come and understand that the terrain, Africa, this is how it does things. So that process of putting a product, not even on the shelf, just to produce a product, is a tough process, Ugandans. I seek your patience, and I pray that when this product comes out, you will know that your bean from your mother, from your sister, from yourself is in that shelf. And when it's on, Amazon or Walmart, even in Capital Shoppers, that will be your pride as a Ugandan. To me, that's what pushes me every other day.
And for that matter, let's push you off the gang.
Go
and do as opposed to staying here to talk. For us, let's remain here to talk. Gangsters, let's let go of Nelson. Let's get down to the terrain that's very familiar to us. And I don't want to be unfair to you, Joseph, but I think now it's time for you to realize that you're outnumbered.
Bambi.
The Uganda People's Congress does not have a presidential candidate on the ballot paper, but of course, you are watching keenly the politics and how it's going.
No, we are the future.
Okay, I can take patience from Nelson. Even you want to tell me to be patient and wait for you, Joseph. Anyway, we are 1 week into the presidential campaigns, and reports indicate that President Museveni is soaring wherever he is. The other candidates, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, has had a few hitches as possibly was expected, and he's back in the city to try and solve a few things with the Electoral Commission, especially with regard to his ability to move around and carry out his campaign without the kind of interruptions that he is reporting to have had. We see other candidates, General Mugisha Muntu, still moving around the country, and Nathan Nandala Mafabi, allegedly buying goats and then asking people who he has bought them to give them to him as presents while he's on the campaign trail. I mean, that's all conversations that continue to go on. I'll start with you, Joseph. So, Joseph, in just 2 minutes, what's your feel and sense of the campaign as it's going? Are we seeing what you always call for, a leveled playing ground, or do we see another charade where we possibly already know the winner and not much is happening that's worth writing home about?
You know, I was extremely optimistic up to the first couple of days of the campaigns, especially when we saw candidates getting formally nominated without having their shoes off, as it had been the case before. And number two, having situations in which, in all cases, as I understand it, none of the candidates were faced up by people who were wearing masks. So it was a rather hopeful time for us. And in any case, I had been amongst those many people who were saying that we really don't want to, and we didn't want to, and we should hope that nothing like what happened in 2021 ever happens again in this country, but particularly these elections. But bringing us to some of the issues that you refer, that Robert was inhibited, or at least felt inhibited, and some of the incidents about Nathan, is rather unfortunate. I think if you listen to Nelson, and if you consider that these guys have been around town for the last 40 years, and if you see what is possible if our citizens are given opportunities, and what is possible if we critique political parties from a perspective of competition of ideas, and if you see some of the innovations that Uganda People's Congress had in the 60s, and some of the things that people are missing today in the next elections, it is extremely important that those people who are presenting themselves as candidates, although I know none of them is going to match what UPC would put on the table, it is still important for Ugandans to have the opportunity to be able to critique these people. The kind of headlines you're referring to does not give our citizens informed opportunity to make informed decisions come the next election. So no wonder some people think it is already a foregone conclusion, particularly with the one candidate, but maybe slightly more, some people hoping that it might be a case in which, unless the opposition reorganize and re-strategize their campaigns, that it might be a one-way move. But I think because we're discussing policy, I must take on something that Nelson concluded with, and that's the question of vision, because it's quite linked to our manifesto questions. If anything, one of the things, and it's unfortunate, is a way where he talks about the visionary Mr. Museveni. On that, politically, I disagree. You can't take 40 years and then accidentally stumble on one Tugume in Tungamo with the initiative that he has had, a fantastic program like this, to then go ahead and pick on to where these guys picked on our coffee way back in 1986. So that's not vision. And number two, that cannot be vision when you've substantially stumbled over Pineti, because I'll keep repeating, Pineti is a national disaster. Pineti should actually be a campaign issue, and Ugandans must demand to know circumstances around Pineti, and Ugandans must vote with Pineti at the helm, rather amongst the many issues. PPP, public-private partnership, as a political tool. I've seen it in some people's manifestos. This is actually a failed system, by the way, from Northern Europe. Blair did it, and I was part of the Labour campaigns then and part of the Labour team. It worked for them in certain aspects, particularly in renovations of schools and hospitals. But at the time, about systems that had already been established. It becomes extremely expensive when you involve a certain section of the private sector to basically run public services. Granted, the Tugume way, to be fair to him, the Tugume way works. Tugume way can work. And in any case, although we're still talking about campaigning, he thought I had moved on. I think it's fair that Ugandans ought to know that out of the $52 million US that has been put in here, how do the population get it back. But I think that is an opportunity for Nelson to respond to much later. As far as the national campaign is concerned on the issues, I really don't know which big idea exists out there amongst all the key players. And as I said, that unfortunately is what's going to happen, meaning that people are going to possibly push into their ballots without knowing the big ideas of the big common man's charter programs of the 60s that turned around this country, the move to the left that this country pushed way back in the 60s that transformed this country, that made sure that people like the Musevenis walked barefooted, stumbled out to Ntare School and created what they are today. The possibilities of young children in Rohama and young children in Chinoni and young children in Agongera being able to be who you are and what James is today, and indeed my sister Lydia, is what Ugandans want. I'm not sure yet that any candidate has so far impressed me with any big idea that can transform this country, especially pushing it to a transition which will going to be a must, a post-Museveni transition.
Tremendous. Now, you have a person to convince, Mr. Tweheyo, and he's seated right next to you, and his name is Joseph Ochieno. But before, let me get down to Malcolm here. Malcolm, we are into the, I prefer to call it the silly season. 1 week into it. What's your take, quickly?
Frankly, Simon, no surprises. None at all. I think that it goes to the fundamental understanding of what an electoral process is in this country. And that is heavily flawed because we discussed this last week, how an election is a process. And so what happens on ballot day is influenced by what happens several months and maybe even years before. Where is the attempt to ensure that this is a level playing field? That whatever the challenges around our capacities as a country, there is seen, because for sure, when there's incumbency involved, there is no level playing field. There isn't, and we can understand that. But can we be seen to offer a level playing field? I do not know a time when our dear president will be diverted from a main road to a dusty road because they might affect the traffic and affect the economy. As a matter of fact, the president is always affecting the economy when he's moving between State House, Entebbe and Nakasero. And all the traffic is stopped, and the joke is that when he's still brushing his teeth, they are stopping the traffic. because
you know the famous picture where the car's parked, he got out a chair and sat by the roadside and got his cartouche and started speaking to Tweheyo.
And he was making a call.
While the economy was waiting.
So if the economy of Uganda can wait for one man, let him pave all the feeder roads so that if he uses the main road, then we don't have that. But I think when you look at, and some of these things are self-defeating, because when you look at the pictures that emerged from that, those are iconic pictures. When you have Bobby Wine full of dust and his lieutenants as well, those are iconic pictures. That shows what a struggle is. Those are similar to some of the pictures and songs we used to hear from the Bush War.
Or even worse.
So I think that it goes back to our fundamental understanding of what it means to have a free and fair election, making it about issues, giving everybody an opportunity to reach the people. The president has the advantage of campaigning every day.
After he's sworn in, he begins the campaign.
When you go around, and it might be difficult to distinguish between who the president is and who the NRM candidate is, partly also because it's difficult to distinguish between what NRM is and what the state is from the way of the conduct. But when you go to independence, colonial independence ground, you can barely tell who is going to speak at the independence celebrations, 63rd independence celebrations. It should be the president of Uganda speaking to all Ugandans, including those who choose to wear red berets. Yes. All of them are Ugandans. But the place is filled with
Yellow.
campaign yellow, and I don't blame Nelson for wearing that campaign hat. If I received $52 million, I would wear that yellow cap and more.
No, I would actually paint my body.
but I think
Simon is actually jealous.
No, I'm not green in I am yellow.
as we get into what is certainly going to be a further charged political season, I think my appeal is to the institutions that are running this electoral process to try and bring us as close to the middle as possible, if possible, because everything, the all processes are blighted. From the nomination, in even the internal, well, I don't go into the internal politics. I think we're going to do that for NUP. We did that for NRM some time back. But when you have blighted internal processes, then you have partisan, let's not kid ourselves, partisan institutions. And again, partisan in the political sense. Because I think we all should be partisan towards the right thing, towards the fair thing. And that would be my appeal. And as we go further, I expect it to be more of the same. I cannot help though but appeal that there is some difference in practice from these institutions.
James, as a commissioner in the NRM Electoral Commission, your work has been clearly cut out, and I'm sure you're done. You have presented to the country who you believe are the respective candidates for the various positions, right from members of parliament. You have a presidential candidate who went through unopposed. You have now SEC members and everything in between. But we also know how you conducted that election. No one can accuse you of having done a good job. Have you had anyone accuse you of having done a good job?
Certainly many have mentioned that we have done a good job. But away from that,
and I hope you reply to them and say, that's a wild allegation and tarnishing my otherwise very good name.
That's the reality. Now, away from that, my job is not yet done. We produced a flag bearer who is now a candidate for the party. We also have a duty now to go ahead and support our flag bearers who we produced, to make it a reality that these flag bearers, right from the president to the lowest LC1 flag bearers, to be the real elected persons and prove ourselves that the flag bearers we put in place are the people who should be leading this country and leading the government. Number two, let's also look at the realities. When Kano Chiza Besigye used to campaign, he went to Bunyoro. And one of the catchwords was that if you see anybody coming from Bunyoro, you can easily identify that person by looking at the dust
on their bodies.
That person. Today, once you go to Bunyoro, you'll be overwhelmed and surprised that those oil roads now which are there. So I don't know whether it is now, it would be easy if Kano Chiza Besigye was still around. I don't know whether it would be easy for him to get back.
He's around.
And talk about the same matter that is there.
We are glad that, let's be glad that he mentioned it. It was a reality. You have worked on that reality and ameliorated what was an otherwise
which is very fine.
Situation.
Now, when Justice Byabakama was flagging off these candidates, he said, please follow the regulations, follow the guidelines, be disciplined, and that is when the elections would go well. At the very start, everybody was impressed, including you, Simon, I believe, that, elections were beginning well, people were moving, but, there are some candidates sometimes who wouldn't want to be seen without any fracas. And they think a fracas would either get them sympathy or would say they are brave and all that. And that is one of the greatest challenges that we're going to have in this campaign. Actually, when the campaign was flowing very well, some people were saying, maybe it's going to go like this. And once they go into some areas and they don't have support, it will happen. I don't want to make a clear mention of somebody who at one time had a trail. And when he was not thrown around with tear gas, he withdrew and said he's coming to reorganize. Do you remember? He went to Mbarara. When he reached Fort Portro, he tried to cause problems. He said, no, I've been harassed now. I need to go and reorganize myself. It is okay. But let the candidates follow the regulations. I want everybody to understand also the true realities that Museveni is a president, a sitting president, but also a candidate. And there is no law that prevents him, this candidate, who
from
happens to be a
enjoying
sitting
presidential
president,
privilege,
to enjoy the presidential privileges. And he has not misused them. He has tried his best to remain civil. He has tried his best to keep on his trail. He has tried his best to keep on the presidential plan as it was put. Everybody put his plan. My brother Mubarak Munyagwa put his plan. My elder brother, General Mishamuntu, who is a neighbor here.
You are in his backyard. Eh?
Yes, we're in his backyard. He's moving on. Munyagwa is saying we should eat our sania. Let everybody
not turn it around.
Yes. Let everybody keep his trail. I want to believe that if you don't violate any regulations, then you cannot be treated without any challenges. So I want to appeal to every other person. Yes, for me, as a person from the party, I still insist our candidates should move and move on well. I still call upon our members to have the discipline, and I would want every other person to enjoy the privilege of living in a country, being a country person, enjoying the campaigns, participating in the campaigns, and at the end of the day, let the best win.
Wow, I was going to say, aren't you going to appeal to the police and other security agencies to follow the law as should be and treat every candidate with the dignity they deserve and not have Eviana and Abana?
Agreed. Everybody should follow the rules.
No, what about those who enforce the rules? Those
Right.
who,
Actually, it is even better if you say that.
where
If
there's no
anybody
selective application.
If anybody diverts from the rules, then the responsible centers should enforce and make sure that there is law and
What
order.
seems to be the case is we see enforcement even where there has been no diversion from the rules. That you see overzealousness from the side of law enforcement, even to those that are on the right track.
One of the challenges I've been having in this country is to differentiate between security and law and order. There's a very big difference. When you talk of security, people think of, they tend to mix it up. There is security, which we enjoy all. But there is law and order. If your peace is going to step on the peace of others, then I don't think that's sufficient enough. This man is a human rights activist. He knows. When you have a right, you also have a duty and responsibility. So let's enjoy the rights, but also
be mindful
make sure
of our
be mindful of the responsibilities that we have to be able to enjoy those privileges of our rights.
It's the Capital Gang coming to you live from Tungamo with the usual folks in the building. Nelson Tugume just left us. He was our guest, but in the studio we still have Malcolm Pamizo, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, Joseph Otieno, and James Tweheo, and myself, of course. The flag bearer of Mbale City for Woman MP.
And here we thought she was on a break from campaigning.
So let's take a short break. When we return, it's more on the Capital Gang. Welcome back. It's the Capital Gang going into our last segment. And in the studio, Malcolm Pamizo, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, who is NRM flag bearer for the woman member of parliament from Mbale City, and Joseph Otieno, who is a poll.
He's waiting for presidential nominations.
Absolutely.
I think for 31 now.
The president that, thanks to the NRA, is still waiting for inauguration.
Joseph, dreaming, I thought, is an act of one night time and when people are asleep.
James is smiling. You forgot him.
Lydia, let's get down into trying to make sense of the first week into the presidential campaign. And we've seen your candidate, began his campaign from his cradle in Luero and quickly moved to Lango sub-region, where he still is, pitched camp there and speaking to the folk there. But also we have on the other end, the top content on the other side, saying his campaign seems to have hit a few snags here and there with regard to his ability to move around, mobilize, and attend to the whims of his supporters by being able to move around freely without much accosting from the law enforcement officers. Just give us a sense of what your thinking is around this. I know you're also busy in your own campaign, but I'm sure you keep tabs on what's happening at the presidential level.
Yeah, I want to say that the NRM campaigns began in Luero, and from there we went to Lango. We are done with the Lango sub-region, so the president will be proceeding to his next campaign, which is starting tomorrow and Monday. But I want to say that on the whole, I think despite the complaints you've raised about people not having their routes properly directed, the first week has been fairly peaceful and eventful for the presidential candidates. But the beauty of it, when they have issues in the field, they have where to refer. You can imagine if you have an issue in the field and you don't have anywhere to refer to. So they have where to refer. I think this was part of the conversation because after the nominations, they had meetings and they had to forward the contact tip of the agents with the National Electoral Commission. So we hope that the second week, because the process, we hope that the second week and the third week will be processed well. For us, when the campaign began, we already had flag bearers at all levels. So the president, who is the principal campaigner, wherever he goes at the venue, is also introducing or unveiling officially our flag bearers who are in those areas. Like it has happened in Luero, but also it happened throughout the campaigns in Lango. Now that you've given me the opportunity, let me thank the people of Luero and the whole Lango sub-region for turning up in big numbers to listen to the NRM campaign, because we are moving with our tool. Well, we already unveiled the manifesto. So we unveiled the manifesto on the 29th, 28th, and we were in Munyonyo. So we are not just talking and off cuff. We have a document to which we are speaking to, and there is a summary to which people are looking at. We hope that the Wananchi can look at our manifesto and vote the NRM according to the social contract to which we are asking. And we are issue-based because being the incumbent, most of the other candidates, you said we are also watching. Their campaign is more about Museveni, the person. There's also this new talk about transition. And election is transition. For us in NRM, when we had primaries, about 50, so I can tell you because I'm no longer, I used to be a commissioner. I'm no longer a commissioner of the commission, but he can tell us the statistics. People lost primaries. So that level had a transition. We have about 60%.
Even where you are coming from in SEC, you were...
Yeah, for us, they told us we were kicked, there was a sweep. So these are transitions. You get a team and go. So the only constant in NRM for many years now is the principle, the presidency. So when you talk about transition, you have to be specific also. You are all looking at one office, but Parliament has over 300 and over 400 MPs. There are 529 or something like that. So these are channels who failed to get nomination for presidential. They can talk about the parliamentary and the councillors. How many councillors are you posting? Because the presidential is sealed in terms of nominations. The campaigns are on. For NRM, we are done with Lango, and we've done very well. The vibes and the ground for presidential in Lango is posting over 80% win, because you don't have a candidate, so you better give us those votes.
That must really hurt very much for
And,
a party like UPC, whose credo is
negotiate.
Lango.
But you see, the
I'm
NRM,
traumatized.
but the NRM party has a bus that has no doors. So the choice is yours to board the bus, and then we negotiate from the inside.
Some may say that bus lacks other critical elements, including sometimes
That's
tires.
why when sometimes some people go in there, they can't get out.
So if you compare previous campaigns, I could see Malcolm smiling because I've been at the center of the elections. But we are so far so good, and we hope that the presidential candidates have a big role they can play in maintaining peace and stability and cohesion during the campaign, because the calendar shows there are only 8 candidates and they can afford to be in different parts of the country. So there is nowhere you can cause supporters to collide or fight.
Well, I have information for you that yes, there may be 8 presidential candidates on the ballot paper, but it's 1 week into the campaign, and 2 of them, specifically Munyagwa and Kasibante, have run out of cash, and I think that's where they 1 week into the election. I see it as a press report. I mean, I'm reading it from it's not an allegation, it's reported here from some news outlets. And one begs the question on the seriousness some of our presidential candidates bring to the race. I mean, from the time we had over 200 folks go to line up to pick nomination forms and get ready to be nominated, and eventually zeroing down on 8, of whom more than half of those have no name and face recognition, other nuisance factor, and perhaps some comical relief. President Museveni seems to be running really, what it may be, well, a 4-man horse where we just see Nandala Mafabi, we see General Mugisha Muntu, we see Robert Chagulanyi, we see Yoweri Museveni, and the others don't seem to quite ring a bell in as far as seriousness is concerned. Malcolm, as we conclude our conversation, I'll allow you to take the conclusion path first. Yes. Do you get that euphoric excitement of the election when you look at the caliber of contenders, especially against the incumbent, to see that possibly there is a 1 in a million years chance that President Museveni could lose this election?
Thank you, Simon. And I think that sums up the mood around the election. I'll take you back to how President Museveni became the NRM candidate. There was only 1 nomination form printed for candidature.
Are you sure?
Within the NRM. That's what was alleged. The other person.
I'm a member of the commission.
I'm reporting.
I can say that's an allegation, and it's a false one.
You have been debunked.
And he'll have his opportunity to debunk even further. But there is a video that quotes the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of the NRM asking the candidates to return later because the nomination forms are over. And only 1 person had picked a nomination form. I'm drawing, Simon, you and I went to that small school on Entebbe Road in SMAC. And
Wow.
from the lessons that I learned from there, I am drawing the conclusion. My deduction is that they printed only one form, and they were not prepared
to photocopy.
So that wasn't an option. And so when you go back there, that level of internal democracy or lack thereof dampens the idea that there could be something different coming. You can even see the agitations within the party itself, the PLU and all the others, have also quietened down, because it has become very, very obvious that there is not going to be any change in the near future. So, translating that into the mood for the general election, the challenges that were being faced by some of the people who, honestly, at a certain point in time, towards the nomination of the presidential elections, I had a fear that there might be a sole candidate there might be no presidential election because almost every other contestant had a problem with their signatures.
At least Katumba would be
Every other candidate. And you're thinking, so what does this say if every other candidate has a problem except the one candidate?
And that problem being noticed and informed the day before, a few hours before closure.
So there's only one person in this country who can get that process right. And when that is the case, then there is a problem. How do we address that problem? So I think all of those things have spoken to the level of apathy, as well as, it becomes, and this is the fifth, sixth iteration of the very same thing. The levels of violence have escalated year in and year out, and everybody is thinking, do I want to get involved in this thing? Are there chances there's going to be a difference? And I'll end with saying this, that the opposition hasn't helped itself much as well, because the levels of fragmentation that are there in those the absence of internal democracy in there as well has made people wonder what are the options.
And just before you leave, now you touch something that we would want to kind of say something about. We've seen it with the National Unity Platform when the tickets, or call them cards, for their members of parliament, that has caused a lot of ruffling of feathers within the National Unity Platform. And we are seeing many of those that feel disenfranchised saying they are going at it independent.
Yeah.
What does that say about the strength of that party, which by all means has been the strongest contender to the NRM?
Well, parties have a choice, and I know Lydia and James will emphasize this. My brother Joseph is struggling to decide which constitution is actually the valid one.
I'm very clear.
But parties have internal processes which, from the outside, we're expected to respect, but also interrogate and critique. What are the NUP will say that they chose that model to try and weed out certain plants from the ruling party that are being planted to destabilize their processes. That can be seen as a valid issue. But what's the backlash? There's a joke about Honorable Segona being given a guitar to sing an a cappella. And when he failed, that's when he lost the ticket and it went to a musician, Walukaga. The lack of transparency is always going to leave people, just as we eventually concluded that there was only one nomination form that was printed, because there was no transparency in how that was done. So the lack of transparency across the different parties. I know that the DP went up to, I think their delegates conference went up to about 4 a.m. as they were trying to debate and decide whether or not to field a candidate, and somehow those that could stay up until that time are the ones that managed to win the day. So I think that internal democracy within the parties is also affecting their ability to impress upon Ugandans.
Joseph, when you look at a country with over 500 constituencies for member of parliament, and you have a party like the National Unity Platform tussling it out for the presidency, but does not have candidates in not more than 2/3 of these constituencies as candidates, what's the chance in a million years that that strongest contender against the NRM could in fact claim the presidency when they are not firmly on ground, as the NRM seems to be? Because NRM has not just a candidate in every constituency, but in fact, in some constituencies, they have people who have threatened to go independent, and yet the NRM leaning.
No, your question traumatizes me more, Simon, as we conclude. I thought I was going to avoid NUP question, but it's extremely disappointing. And for me, as a Democrat and somebody who's fought for pluralism in this country and returned from multipartyism, and also as a human rights activist, and also somebody who's completely convinced that constitutionalism, both within political parties and organizations and nationally, as Malcolm says, is a must for us actually going forward. It was very, very disappointing to see some of the things that have happened in NUP. But of course, in UPC, we are grappling with it also, meaning this question of constitutionalism. But from our case, our problem is merely leadership. In terms of the structural processes, they're very clear. That's why I'm actually quite shocked that there are people in UPC who who break the constitution and present themselves as clearly, not only basically academically illiterate, but legally so. Look, how NUP could go ahead and fumble and bungle it in this way, I don't know. But that's a matter for them. But because it's campaign time, I don't want to be very unfair to them. The process of getting candidates for parliament.
So when you're
really,
here normally being
ideally,
unfair to the other candidates, isn't it campaign time? Why are you being sympathetic?
Well, because I'm sparing them for a particular reason. But quite clearly, I argued about this, that nomination process, selection of parliamentary candidates for all political parties should really be a grassroots process. What the top leadership, what the national party does is to sieve through the process in what we call having a long list, as it were. You clear the process and then let candidates be sorted out by their district. Let candidates be sorted out by their constituencies. Let constituents interview candidates and determine who is going to represent them. I hope NUP reviews this, but it's not a problem for us in UPC. But that said, good luck to them. I just have to address very quickly this power of the incumbency thing. You know, it's the absence of leadership on this continent, absence of leadership in this country. It's absolute basic common sense that because you're an incumbent, you've got the power. If you're genuinely, consciously a people-driven person, you want to be an exemplary leader, you know, it's your job to be responsible as an incumbent because you've got the privilege. It's your job to have a sense of humility, particularly at campaign time, because you're showing good example to the likes of Simons who would be wanting to become leaders of the future. It's your job to be exemplary.
You think I still have appetite to listen to something like that? I'm a leader of the future? Boss, 1986 is when I went to primary one and I was told we are the leaders of tomorrow. Today I am a male adult with teenage children and
Still
nobody even calls me uncle.
No, fair enough.
I am
LC
today older.
LC1.
I am today older than when President Museveni came to power, and he was being called Muzei then.
That is why it has
Today,
to
no one calls me uncle.
go. That's really why it has to go. And this politics of transition is not politicking, it's a reality. I just want to say that very quickly, that this business of protecting gains should be put aside. The country is missing serious debates around peace, serious debate about unity, inequality, public services, infrastructure, environment, and most importantly, corruption. I am saddened that these are not things which are being heightened, although they're in people's manifestos, but they're urgent conversations we need to have. But because of time, I don't know what else to say, but to say whatever it is, I think Ugandans ought to wake up, particularly young Ugandans need to come out, go participate in the electoral process and make sure that, well, they vote out people who are holding their future hostage.
Who are not protecting their gangs. Now, I will put you guys in one omnibus. You and Lydia, since you are seated next to each other, you have one microphone, and throw it to you as Joseph has put it.
A very quick one then.
Joseph says there is lack of attention to, read me that list again, peace, security, one. So I'm asking, what's your candidate talking about then? It looks like your candidate.
I think Joseph has not had a clear insight in our manifesto. And
I've critiqued as part of my job.
A copy when we reach Kampala. I'll get a copy. But beyond that, I wanted to have a quick throw on the strategies. You know, when every candidate was starting the campaign, I think their strategists did a good job for the start. Honorable Nandala Mafabe, or His Excellency now, or somebody who would want to be started from Wikwe, and the reason, in my view, why he started from there is that he has a farm there, and he wanted to start from his home ground. My brother, Chagulanyi, started from Busoga. And because he had his team, his core team initially was from that area, and they were organizing and reorganizing, and they saw there was some discontent in Busoga because of the campaign disorganization, disorder at the time of the for Right Honorable Kadaga. They thought they would take advantage of that discontent and started from there. The president started from Luwero, because that's the core ground where the NRM was born. And of course, Munyagwa started from his home ground, Nkawempe, except with the exception of General Michamuntu. The others, the strategists took that advantage. And politically, I think they were right. Because once you start from a ground where you can have a crowd, you develop confidence of your other areas. And once you see that somehow you may lose track, then you can also put other strategies to back up your initial strategy. And I think that is part of what is happening. Yes, it could be right or wrong, but somehow that's partly what it is. Now, About the manifesto, please. I will give you a chance. I'll support you. Let's go and have a discussion. I'll get you a copy. We shall look at it. And these are the issues that are there. And I think we should have a chance to expose it and juxtapose it with the other manifestos and we see the best. Lydia can take it up from that, but those are the realities we must look at.
Thank you, Mr. Twehe. One would say, Lydia, that while some may say you are smiling to the bank, it looks like the NRM this time you're going to be laughing into the bank because clearly with the internal contradictions taking place in the National Unity Platform and the fact that they are not firmly as footprinted across the country as you seem to be, this seems to be a very relaxed campaign for you that, other than you respectively going for your constituency seats, the presidency seems to be guaranteed.
No,
Doesn't that come off as a
It is
bit?
work in progress. We've been able to listen to the challenges of the last campaign, put on paper, try to fulfill to the extent that is possible the campaign pledges, and where we have not, our candidate has a brief on explaining what we've not done, because we've mapped the country, and wherever he's going, he's able to speak to what is for that community, like we've done in Lango. He was in Apache, he was in Lira, he was in Aleptong, speaking to what is relevant for those areas and being able to explain. Those areas, some of them had to connection of the ferry. Now the ferries are up and running. So we're able, so we've delivered the ferry. Where there are problem roads, we've been able to set off schools. So he's been able to speak to what it is that we are pledging. The challenge of incumbency cannot be wished away, because while others are blaming you and they're running away, for you, you must explain, then
And
you ask,
admit.
and admit and promise, then you ask for a vote. So ours, we have a bigger burden in the campaign than our colleagues. If it was with Malcolm, he would say, you've not done this, you've not done this, you are useless. Then for me, I have to come and I will say, please, I didn't do this, but I'm able to do this. Even the manifesto is speaking to going forward, we are going to do this. That's why the burden of convincing for the next vote is heavier on the part of the NRM, but we are not sleeping. We've spent sleepless nights to be able to meet the expectations of their people, both at the presidency, but also at the different levels. That's why we have all the flag bearers up and running. We have our own internal contradictions. We are trying to try to see if we can get negotiated arrangements, and so that we don't have many independents coming back, because the last elections showed that we divided the vote and lost
The seats.
they lost the seats to other
Parties.
sister parties that were competing with us. So if NRMs can reduce the issue of independence so that we don't divide our votes and we deal with the internal contradictions, we should be able to post more members of parliament, more mayors, more councillors to these offices than we did in the last election.
But even
so
where
it's not a cup of tea. What you see is work for the last 4 years.
You see tea, we are talking coffee.
So
It's not a cup of coffee.
what you see is not a cup of coffee. It has been a lot of work, analysis of what went wrong, and we have the map of Uganda on every wall of the NRM. We are plotting the whole country. Where are we doing well? Where do we have problems? We are able to analyze, and we on our before you go to any campaign, we have a list of problem people, problem issues, problem. We list them and we are engaging. We are running an engagement campaign because we are for serving the people. We are people servants.
We've seen in some
And
instances,
it's the
your
same we are
candidate
doing in Mbale City.
singling out individuals from the crowd and saying, come with me, and I
That
organize
is
for
what
you a
is
job.
happening. So we are dealing with individuals. We are dealing with the people,
What
not
about-
just ideas.
what about
We know
internal
people by name, by
contradictions?
interests, by...
What about internal contradictions where, for example, your candidate, and I'm sorry I'm bringing it to your footstep, where you may not be faced with an NRM-leaning independent vying for you, but you have certain power centers within the NRM which are frustrating your campaign, which are undermining your campaign. How is that going in trying to ensure that whatever your differences, at least allow Lydia win the constituency for the NRM?
Those contradictions are there, and that's why while I'm a candidate, people like the Tweheyos are at strategic level trying to protect the interests of the party, but also trying to protect the interests of the candidate. Like now for my case, of course, the challenges within Mbale City cannot just be with internal, they are also external, and there are contradictions. You have candidates who post national character, but you have candidates who have been councillors who might survive because they do not post national character challenges. So the mapping is there, and maybe this show should know that those who are trying to cause internal contradictions are known, and they will be called upon to negotiate, to let us deliver the party where we sit. Thank you so much.
Because the last bit, tomorrow is the World Teachers Day. Yes, I remain the teacher I am. And I want to wish all the teachers in this country the best of the World Teachers Day and pray.
And they should know that they've been let down by
NRM. That are there
NRM.
be sorted, and the schools and the children and the country. And I pray that whatever every teacher does should be in the best interest of the child.
And I'm sure the same teachers will say whatever you do as a sitting government, and especially one
But
that has
because
people like
we
you,
are in
is in their
Ntungamo,
best interest.
And the best interest of the
Nelson,
child
because
as well.
we are living in Ntungamo, I want us to know that we can replicate what we've seen in Ntungamo on coffee in other blocks, in other centers. It's not a one alone. So people should not complain why in Ntungamo. We should do same. Mbale City should have one. We should have one in Izombo. Why not? So that we are able to grow coffee and market it and open the international market for
From
trade.
wherever it is that you've been catching this edition of the Capital Gang, we want to thank you more immensely for being a part of this communication, a part of this programming, a part of the discussion. I want to believe that we've picked a little more value and had some debunkment of certain situations and conversations, but most importantly, for also having our technical teams run a seamless engagement online, on air, and everything in between. Thank you, kudos, folks. And yes, it's from me as the host of the program. It's been a pleasure. God bless, and let's meet same time, same place, another time.
God bless Uganda.
And happy independence.